Hello, and welcome to Roadside, Florida, the program where we travel back in time to Florida's unique attractions and destinations. Some of these places are gone, and some are still going strong, but all are loved by tourists and locals alike. I'm Rene Ramos, the director of the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. Once again, my co-pilot is historian Sylvia Gurinsky. For this episode, we're visiting locations that on the surface were simply places to eat, vacation, or have fun, but ended up playing important roles in our area's history. Some of them are gone, and some of them are still around, but they are all captured on film for us to share with you. Our first stop takes us to those old school eating places found inside department stores. The downtown lunch counters. Known as places to get a quick and inexpensive meal, during a day of shopping in the 1950s, the lunch counters were transformed into a battlefront in the struggle for civil rights.
Restaurants were a place for leisure, but also for progress. During the late 1950s, the local chapter of Congress for Racial Equality, or CORE, launched sit-ins, protests in which blacks and whites sat at lunch counters to oppose segregation. Downtown Miami lunch counters at Burdine's, McCrory's, Woolworth's, W.T. Grant, and more were the sites of the protests. Sit-ins in other parts of the country got more attention, but Miami's quiet protests saw relatively quick progress. A few years later, local women were protesting the men's clubs, lunch hours for businessmen and local department stores such as Burdine's and Jordan Marsh. The protests, letter writing, and meetings eventually ended those restrictions as well.
To bring us her expansive and well-informed perspective on these places from our shared past, here's our resident roadside historian, Sylvia Gurinsky. Welcome back, Sylvia.
Thank you, Rene. It's great to be back.
Fantastic. So could you please tell me more about the lunch counter sit-ins? Where you mentioned that they were happening all over the country. So the ones in South Florida, did they happen spontaneously, or were they part of a coordinated program? And who were the leaders of these sit-ins?
They were part of a coordinated program. CORE, Congress for Racial Equality, local representatives were involved. Various students, college students mainly were involved as well. There were some national representatives, but also local community members and from different backgrounds, blacks and whites. And they went and conducted the sit-ins at the lunch counters, mainly the lunch counters along Flagler Street in downtown Miami.
So we have footage in the archives of Dr. King being in South Florida at the time. He didn't necessarily participate in those sit-ins, but it seems that he was in coordination and in communication with some of the leaders here in the civil rights movement.
Yes.
So I want to segue into the men's clubs that you mentioned. You can imagine the men of the time saying, well, why don't the women just have their own lunch hours and their own little club? So what exactly were the women objecting to?
There were captain's table, gentleman's club hours, with names like that, set up at places such as Burdine's and Jordan Marsh. And of course, at the time, department stores, most of the day, women were the primary customers who shopped daytime hours. And I suppose executives said, well, men's lunches can take place in a specific hour. But there were women who said, why are you setting up a specific hour just for men? That doesn't even make sense. And some of the leading women in the community, Roxy Bolton, Gwen Cherry, who later became a member of the Florida legislature, were among those who were leading the campaigns to stop the men's only hours at department stores. They wrote letters, they led protests. Roxy Bolton had one situation where she threatened to take a basket of sandwiches and distribute it to anybody who was trying to go into the department store restaurants for the men's hour.
Well, and famously, Roxy Bolton later stormed a meeting of the Orange Bowl Committee. Mm-hmm. So she was really one of those folks who's just trying to break through and
right.
and break through that glass ceiling, as it were.
Mm-hmm. And by 1969, one of the letters that exists is from an executive at Burdines who wrote to Roxy Bolton and told her, we are going to change the policy. We're going to eliminate the men's only hour at in the restaurants.
So that's great. That's some real blows against
yes, indeed.
oppression happening right here at a humble place, the lunch counter.
That's right. That's right. And it was that way, too, with the sit-ins that took place, that during the first half of the 60s, those lunch counters started to integrate. There was more attention given to other parts of the country. So it happened relatively quietly in South Florida, or at least in Miami. But they did start to make significant progress.
Fascinating history and something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's time to take a short break for some messages. When we return, I hope you'll stay with us as we look at some of the grand hotels of the past that set the standard for comfort and luxury in their day. Stay tuned. And now, a TV commercial blast from the past. Hope you enjoy it.
SOS introduces a glass cleaner that really works. Glassworks. Glassworks made with vinegar instead of ammonia cleans better than Windex. New Glassworks with vinegar cuts through the toughest greasy smudges faster and easier, so there's less work for you. And everything you clean is shiny and streak-free. New Glassworks made with vinegar cleans with less work. Maybe it works too well.
Learn and earn today at Miami-Dade College. College graduates earn 56% more than high school graduates and $1 million more in lifetime earnings. A degree from MDC is your path to greater earning power and career success. Choose from hundreds of affordable high-tech and in-demand career programs, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, business, and nursing. Learn and earn today at MDC and fast-track your career. Enroll now at mdc.edu/purpose.
Welcome back. South Florida is a vibrant place known for its beautiful beaches, lively culture, and iconic architecture. Let's travel back in time as we explore the historic hotels that have played a significant role in shaping our rich history and hospitality scene. From glamorous hideaways to elegant landmarks hosting luxury dining and celebrity-filled banquets, these buildings witnessed the region's remarkable transformation over the years.
Luxury hotels are a destination for fancy dining. From Miami's early days when Henry Flagler's Royal Palm Hotel opened, local hotels have included elaborate restaurants that have attracted both tourists and nearby residents. The Boom hotels featured restaurants as a destination, such as the Top of the Columbus restaurant at the Columbus Hotel in downtown Miami and the Poolside restaurant at the Biltmore in Coral Gables. The mega hotels constructed after World War II, such as the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach, became destinations themselves, with restaurants and other fancy dining part of that experience, as well as celebrity watching, which continues to this day.
So welcome back, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Could you tell me about some of the designers of those grand old hotels that you mentioned? Who were they and what was their inspiration?
Well, the first generation of those the first of the grand hotels entirely in the area was the Royal Palm Hotel, Henry Flagler's Royal Palm Hotel. Wood frame building, about 6 floors, and really the first really elegant dining that you had in South Florida, although it wasn't the first hotel. The menus for some of the Flagler hotels, not the Royal Palm, but the Royal Point Sienna from Palm Beach, are available on the website of the New York Public Library. And it's wonderful to see. It was basically the food of the day. There was a little local tropical influence. Sometimes you'd find oranges, grapefruits, maybe some guava on the menu. Not really mango, because mango is a summer fruit, and it was a time when that hotel was closed for the summer. Of course, the 1920s brought about the Grand Mediterranean Revival hotels, the Biltmore Hotel, the original Rene Plaza, Carl Fisher's hotels, which also had, again, the menus that were fashionable for the hotels of the day. And then during the post-World War II period, the Grand Miami Modern hotels, led by the Fontainebleau and the Eden Rock. And at the Fontainebleau, at least, a lot of French influence, the name, of course, and fancy restaurants with French names, and they had a lot of the French cuisine as well. So there was a lot more of an international influence taking place after World War II.
So some of those places that you mentioned, at least that early first part of the building of the hotels, sadly, those places no longer exist. But you mentioned the Miami Modern hotels like the Fontainebleau and the Eden Rock. Those have survived, and those have survived in the face of some really intense pressure from development in that area. What do you attribute that to? What can we give credit to for those places surviving?
I think it is that, first of all, the architect Morris Lapidus, who by the time he was in his later years in the 1990s was becoming very celebrated by new generations of architects and preservationists. There was already the history of the Art Deco district, a lot of buildings there being preserved. So attention about 25 years ago turned to the Miami Modern buildings, and of course, the Fontainebleau and the Eden Rock are the two most famous MIMO buildings of them all, MIMO structures of them all. And a lot of people, local and people from out of town, had warm memories of going to these hotels. And have to this day. So it was very important to campaign for the preservation there. And both the hotels have been renovated and continue to be very popular.
That seems to be the case with a lot of the older hotels that have managed to survive. They're still there, and at the very least, the outside looks very similar to the way it was in the past, but they've completely refurbished them and made them more elegant and more of something that would be attractive to people now with their modern tastes and expectations.
Very true. And let me also mention the Biltmore Hotel, which actually harks back to that earlier time, the 1920s.
It does. That's right.
And really did come back. It was used by the federal government as a hospital during World War II and then as the Veterans Administration Hospital. And a lot of the citizens of Coral Gables, it was very important to them to have it fully restored as a hotel. And really a wonderful place to go and turn back time. And they still have, again, the elegant meals today. Their tea is very popular as well. The afternoon tea, which is very elaborate and very popular, or the Sunday brunch.
So there are several hotels in our history that were based on the Giralda Tower. And so the Rene Plaza, which you mentioned, which sadly no longer exists, was one.
And the Biltmores.
And the Biltmore. And my understanding is also the tippy top, at least the original part of the Everglades Hotel, the topmost part that at some point was torn down.
Yeah.
But that was also based on, at least partially on the Giralda Tower. And then, of course, it wasn't a hotel, but the Freedom Tower.
Right. Freedom Tower, and it's too bad, too, that a lot of those downtown hotels are gone. The Everglades, the Columbus was a popular hotel as well with the top of the Columbus Tower. The McAllister Hotel was there, too, and a lot in the 1990s when the preservation movement was starting up for the Fontainebleau and Eden Rock, across the bay, those downtown hotels were torn down for newer generations of hotels.
At least there's a few reminders left of some of the glamour of that yesteryear.
Yesteryear.
Well, it's time to take another break. But when we return, we'll be turning our attention to everybody's favorite topic, food. Get ready for a mouth-watering tour of our region's international cuisine when we return. Don't go away. Did you enjoy the previous archived TV commercial? Well, here's another one.
If you're searching for something for your little girls and boys, and you're finding high prices but not finding toys, and you're sad and you're blue and you're tired running around, the Lionel Kitty City turned that frown upside down. We've got selection, no prices too. Lionel Kitty City makes it easy for you. The prices and selection are among the best around. The Lionel Kitty City turned that frown upside down.
Learn and earn today at Miami-Dade College. College graduates earn 56% more than high school graduates and $1 million more in lifetime earnings. A degree from MDC is your path to greater earning power and career success. Choose from hundreds of affordable high-tech and in-demand career programs, including cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, business, and nursing. Learn and earn today at MDC and fast-track your career. Enroll now at mdc.edu/purpose.
Greetings and welcome back, Florida travelers. Every day in South Florida, a melting pot of cultures comes alive, transforming our cities into a food lover's paradise. Here we are not just locals, we are global connoisseurs, savoring the best of every corner of the world.
Migration to South Florida from different countries also brought different tastes. The first major influence came from the Cuban community. Restaurants such as Versailles and La Esquina de Texas attracted everyone from neighborhood residents to presidents of the United States, who sipped cafecito and savored everything from arroz con pollo to flan. Recent decades have seen not only restaurants from different communities, but also food festivals featuring shared celebrations with booths for arepas, jerk chicken, soup jumu, and knishes often side by side. All of this, plus new generations of local chefs, contributes to South Florida's increasing international reputation in the culinary community.
Welcome back, Sylvia.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about the Versailles restaurant and how it became this epicenter of the Cuban community and the Cuban American culture in Miami.
Well, it opened, they had a celebration of their 50th anniversary not too long ago, about a year ago. And again, the family that opened it, Cuban immigrants, they have had other restaurants, including El Pub, La Carreta, among others. But that one has seemed to be the most famous, curiously enough. And it's gotten a lot of political attention, and that really goes back to Bob Graham in 1978 when he was campaigning for governor. Graham became very famous for his work days, taking on a different job every day in some part of the state, communicating with the people. And he worked, I think, as a busboy at Versailles. One day, had a chance to chat with a lot of the customers, and it helped him win the election. And then other politicians started to go as well. But the next place that got really famous was further to the east, La Esquina de Texas, which no longer exists. Was located around, I think, near Flagler Street and 12th Avenue, yeah. And interestingly, a couple of blocks from where I spent part of my time growing up. And in 1984, I think on the occasion of the anniversary of Cuba's independence from Spain, President Ronald Reagan had lunch there. And had the traditional lunch, including chicken, black bean soup, frijoles negros, flan, cafecito, and seemed to enjoy it very much. Afterwards, they named 12th Avenue for him, and the restaurant closed in the 1990s, but for a while they capitalized. I remember they had the picture up of him dining there. They tried, La Esquina also tried opening a downtown restaurant where they also had the picture up. But people seem to go back to Versailles. And you've had everybody from local politicians to presidential candidates stopping there. Most of them just having a cafecito and maybe a little snack.
Well, it's known around the world, and I think there's even the quote from Calvin Trillin, the writer, who said that he liked Miami's version of Versailles better than the one in France. I think he may have been being a little facetious there, but it is.
Well, the one in France does not have black bean soup and cafecito.
That's right.
So that may explain
That's
it.
right. You have to come to Miami for that. So you mentioned other international cuisines coming into South Florida with all the different cultures that have made this their home. Is this a well-kept secret, or are people outside our region becoming aware of the fact that there's more than just Cuban food and Latin food here?
Yeah, it's not as much of a secret as it used to be, and a lot of the reason is because of the generations of chefs that have been springing up locally since the 1980s. The original collection, which was called the Mango Gang, which started opening restaurants in the 1980s and 90s. People such as Norman Van Aken, Michelle Bernstein, Chef Alan Susser, and others. Development of food festivals. I know Miami-Dade College had the Paella Festival for a couple of years in the late 80s and early 90s. Florida International University started its culinary festival in the late 1990s. A number of chefs have also won various national and international awards. And you also have places that get into such guides as the Michelin star ratings and really compete for that. So it's turned into a very serious thing, and a lot of people now come from all over the world to enjoy and partake of these foods.
So you can make an argument that food has taken an important role just as much as the actual scenery and the hotels and everything else in making this an international destination.
Yeah. I know there are a lot of people, depending on whoever is in a particular place, if somebody's from out of town, they will ask, well, do you know of any good restaurants to eat? Where can I go that is here and there? I'm going to be in this particular area. And you think about, there's always at least one restaurant or one spot where somebody can go to have a good meal.
Well, certainly when I was young, it was hard, for instance, to find a good Southeast Asian restaurant or, other types of food. But now you can pretty much pick a different place to eat and a different international cuisine to try every night of the week for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, it's we're not quite Chicago yet, but
we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sylvia, and it's been great, as always. That's all for this edition of Roadside Florida. Roadside Florida features historical film and videos from the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. To see more from the Wolfson Archives collection, visit our website at wolfsonarchives.org. You can search the archives catalog and watch videos online. And be sure to connect to our YouTube channel, where you will find hundreds of carefully curated clips, or link to the Wolfson Archives Facebook page to keep up with our busy calendar of historical happenings. I'm Rene Ramos. Until next time, thank you for watching.